Alright, so after watching the TED Talk by Elisa Miller, I just kind of want us to think about the news and the perception it gives us of the world. And this is Fox News Network. These are ratings. It has the highest ratings. So we will be watching outtakes from a documentary titled Outfoxed.
Showing some fatigue. I mean, the patrol's only 217 days and counting until George W. Bush is reelected. They're saying John Kerry looks French. John Kerry looks French. Kerry, the man who would be America's first French president.
When you're at war, there are two models. You have the Churchill, Reagan, Thatcher, Tony Blair, George Bush model, or you have the McGovern, Jimmy Carter, French John Kerry model.
Are the Republicans going to effectively be able to make Kerry French? Good afternoon, everybody, or as John Kerry would say, bonjour.
French are thinkers, and that doesn't go into the code of the American presidency. I mean, you know, the French are the thinker, the penseur, whatever. I mean, they think, and they never do anything with their thinking. I believe that Mr. Kerry has to get away of this image if he wants to win. Right now, I think he's not in the American archetype. Why? He's on vacation. If the archetype is to take action and you are taking vacation, I mean, you're definitely not. You don't fit the code. You are off code. And
Mr.
that's
Reply,
yes.
Thank you very much. You are hereby invited back.
An anthrax vaccine for 25 million.
The key thing is, don't be inhaling, don't be ingesting, don't be sucking particles into your body that could get the radiation inside.
First, your advice is stay inside, don't drink or eat anything.
Many of the themes that are promoted on the Fox News channel have to do with generating fear. Whether that's fear of immigration, a fear of sexual difference, a fear of racial difference.
When you pander to fear, it's a great motivator and organizer. You've got to keep people alarmed.
They really love this sense of fear and danger, even when it's not there. And so when something is actually dangerous, as some things are, they go completely overboard. And all sense of perspective is lost. So that anthrax, which I guess affected 4 or 5 people adversely, no question about it, is far more dangerous than, you know, the poisoning of our air.
The way we deal with them is the way President Bush is dealing with them. You cordon the area, you search for them, and you shoot them.
The motivator is fear. And then the payoff is, you know, we're going to go out and kill the bad guys. You know, it's a very simple black and white world that they paint and portray.
Terrorism has become the all-purpose fear weapon because now everything is converted into terrorism. And of course, if you have a constant sense of unease, then you're going to look to the government to protect you. You're going to look to strong government.
We've removed from power enemies of this country. We have made America more secure.
There's this enemy out there. It's an ill-defined enemy, but as long as we're fighting them and killing them, and he's looking presidential, then nothing else again is discussed.
What was interesting is in the climate of the Bush administration that much of that fear, the emotion, was purposely misdirected by the right wing into the war in Iraq.
The type of coverage Fox offers, and all of them offer, but Fox is probably the most pristine version, is completely consistent with Bush's, with the strategy of the Bush administration. To prevent discussion of things that are not going well, like, for instance, the economy or the Medicare bill.
There's no doubt that the war against Iraq, a country that did not attack us, could only proceed based on fear.
Tonight, it's a special 2-hour block.
War is my last choice, but the risk of doing nothing is even a worse option as far as I'm concerned.
Dealing with Iraq, the president's war on terror. When will his military plans get put into action?
We hope you depend on us for the truth, because we're going to report the situation in Iraq without an agenda or any ideological prejudice. Then you got to take what comes. Not that we hate you, Martin Sheen, but that we may not want to watch your television program anymore because we're identifying you with being against what we believe in. Americans, and indeed our foreign allies, who actively work against our military once the war is underway, will be considered enemies of the state by me.
But first, are the Americans who went over to Baghdad to act as human shields, well, are they more than just protesters? Are they traitors? So Harry Belafonte, he's at it again. He says
say what you want, but we have a right not to buy your record. Just fair warning to you, Barbara Streisand, and others who see the world as you do. We don't want to demonize anyone, but anyone who hurts this country at a time like this, well, let's just say you will be spotlighted.
Certainly television, and perhaps to an extent my station, was intimidated by the administration and its foot soldiers at Fox News. And it did, in fact, put a climate of fear and self-censorship, in my view, in terms of the kind of broadcast work we did.
First rule of being a great propaganda system, and why our system is vastly superior to anything in the old Soviet Union, is not that people think they're being subject to propaganda. If people don't think that, they aren't looking for that, they're much easier to propagandize. And that's the genius of our media system, it's a system of ideology, of control compared to an authority.
Survey is interesting because you were looking at questions of basic true-false kind of factual nature. Did we find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? These are very simple questions with very simple answers, and what the survey found was that the more likely you were to watch Fox News Channel, the more likely you were to have completely incorrect assumptions about these things.
All the research shows a very high correlation in the case of Fox News with people watching it, with having a very confused notion of the world on one hand, especially of foreign policy in the Middle East, and also being strongly supportive of the government in power. And this is an extraordinarily disturbing trend for the media. I mean, for any self-respecting journalist, if you're told the more people consume your media, the less they'll know about the subject and the more they'll support government policy. And that's exactly the worst thing any journalist would ever want to hear, or should want to hear.
The United States.
Fox News now projects George W. Bush the winner in Florida, and thus it appears the winner of the presidency of the United States.
Now, what's significant about that is not the intervention of the president's cousin to declare his relative the new president of the United States. It was the fact that within minutes, ABC, NBC, CBS also fell right in line, calling Bush as the winner.
George Bush is the president-elect of the United States. Bush wins. ABC News is now going to project that Florida goes to Mr. Bush.
There's no way that they could have crunched the data in that time to come to that conclusion. In fact, quite the opposite. They should have come to the conclusion which the Associated Press came to, which was that you couldn't make a call. When Fox made the call that Bush had won, and the other networks followed on, that created the perception that Bush was the winner. In fact, he wasn't. But that perception was what really held for the next 37 days. And I would suggest to you that that call on election night had more to do with making George Bush president than any recount or ballot design issue.
We gave our audience bad information. Our lengthy and critical self-examination shows that we let our viewers down. I apologize for making those bad projections that night. It will not happen again.
Post-war protests.
But the bigger issue here is Kerry's involvement in a group that's inherently violent.
Presumptive Democratic nominee John Kerry was scaring old people, as usual, with the predictable Democratic line. He said President Bush will cut off their entitlement checks. It isn't true, but the lie has worked well for Democrats in the past.
Assuming that the unthinkable happens and that Senator Kerry becomes president.
You're watching Fox News, real journalism, fair and balanced.
They will give you almost the full Bush stump speech, no matter where it is, no matter how many times they've shown it. They'll cut live to these campaign rallies as if there was going to be real news in them, as if Bush was going to say anything earth-shattering.
And your ability to make good decisions, like marrying your wife Carolyn.
Fox portrays his every action as a heroic move, as something dramatic and significant. I imagine it's pretty hard for the Fox producers. Some days George Bush doesn't do anything interesting, and yet they've got to find something that makes him heroic that day.
Well,
most people just started waking up and saying, oh, you mean we don't have the fairness doctrine anymore? I can't tell you how many times when I was a political candidate running for office, I would have somebody come up to me on the street and say, now I saw your opponent on TV the other day. Aren't they supposed to give you equal time? And I didn't even know for years that we lost that in the Reagan era. That for years we haven't had the ability to expect both sides to be adequately covered.